Hey everybody, it's Steve again. So I don't post every day. So I'm doing more than one post because some days I don't post, and some days I have the opportunity to post more. It happens to be a day that I'm not in school. I'm currently enrolled in a trucking program. To I've got to bump my CDL from a Class B to a Class A, and because I'm going to start doing over the road trucking. And I'm early in the class. It's only been going on for a few days. So today's Friday, the middle of January of 2026. So in this on this channel, you got to know I'm kind of a typical American. 50 something, and when I was in my 20s, I didn't give a shit about politics, right? I was fresh out of the military, and I was chasing girls and chasing adventure. I was doing everything I could to get shot at. I was doing everything I could to have people pull knives on me and shit, and get paid while I was doing it. I mean, I just didn't see the point in having a job doing stuff that didn't involve that kind of stuff, because I just really wanted to do those things. And so I didn't want to waste time working at 7-Eleven or someplace else. I tried being a police officer. I had this idea that would be getting shot at, but it was not. It was completely not. It was fucking boring and broken up with moments of having to watch other officers senior to me do horrible shit that I would have to try to justify to myself, and then constantly be wondering if I should talk to somebody about this shit and all that. And I was just like, no, I just can't keep doing this for work. So I got out of that. I mean, I spent time as a sheriff's reservist, so that I could get that job. And I spent time in a community college working on a degree in criminal justice and stuff like that. But I talked to other people that I did trust that were deputies that have been doing it for a long time, and they all pretty much confirmed to me that this is exactly the job. Whether you're doing it for 1 year or for the next 15 years, that you're going to be bored out of your mind, and that you're going to be doing a ton of paperwork rather than anything else interesting, and that you're going to be constantly forced to kind of look the other way while other officers do horrible shit that you never signed up for. So I was like, no, I'm out. That's the one thing that I ever did that was good, that was smart, that was take that advice to heart and abandon that something that I had thought about doing for years. I really, 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 really wish I had gotten back into the military. I wish I had never gotten out. But, wishing in one hand and what in the other, kind of a thing. So my military time was in the Iowa Army National Guard. Reluctantly and accidentally, okay? I wanted to go in the Army and full-time for a career. And my dad had been a sailor for 14 years. And he started out in a reserve unit, and something I never heard about until it was time for me to go to to sign up for the Army. And I was 17, so it wasn't quite there yet. But my dad, I don't know why, but he was really concerned about me. He didn't want me to leave home. I guess he was worried about me going off to the military, which of all people, he shouldn't have been worried about that, because that's what he did. But anyway, he he suggested that I go into the National Guard first because I could do the delayed entry program. I was 17. He said, well, you can sign up now and, as a junior in high school and, go to basic training while you're after your, the summer of your junior year. And so you'll get a jump on it. You get a jump on your military career. To me, that sounded legit, and he said that's what he did, so I was like, yeah, okay, cool. My dad was 100%. My dad was very legit. One of the most intelligent human beings I've ever conversed with in my entire life. And it was a funny thing. It taught me as a young person not to judge a book by its cover. My dad had a strong Southern accent, and he was missing a front tooth, except that he had a high IQ. I mean, it was never measured, but it would have been interesting to see it measured, to be honest. After he died, years after he died, actually, a family friend that my parents knew from the Navy, turns out that the man had been my father's handler, because they both had extremely high clearances. And my father had a role in the Navy it was in the Naval Security Group, which apparently, I had never heard of before he mentioned that to me. No, before an author of a book mentioned it to me, then he told me also. But he told me that, and he was apparently very, very familiar with my father's background and stuff like this because of his particular job with my father. He was kind of like the Navy made him into a mentor to my father. This man had a very, very high clearance at the time. He originally was an encryption person in the Navy. When he met my father, this man was a very high-ranking enlisted man, and the Navy made him basically a mentor, somebody that my father could talk to about anything, and it wouldn't violate any kind of rules or anything like that, or security clearance stuff. Because my father was a courier, a very high level clearance-wise courier in the naval submarine fleet, and the particular vessel that my father worked on when these two men met was the tip of the spear in the Cold War. And he told me way after my father died that when my dad took the original ASVAB, which I don't know what it was originally called, the test that you get in the Navy, he only missed one question. Which, it's funny because my dad had never even seen a television until he was 17. He was raised very, very poor in the hills of Mississippi, the real hillbilly type thing, where you got a pair of shoes per year, and if you lost one, or they got damaged, too bad, so sad, you'd be barefoot. I heard some hair-raising stories as a kid, not just the kinds that are meant to raise your hair, but the ones that are like, who the fuck does that to their kids? But, that's life for my dad. When he was a kid, it was about survival. Yeah, when the Depression ended, it didn't end in some places. So, but then again, when the Depression began, it probably didn't really begin in some places. It just was continued, That's just how it is. But anyway, I don't even know where I was going with all that. I got distracted in my head, which is something that you'll learn that I do a lot. So, one of the little gifts of ADHD. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I'm not wearing my new. This is my new look. My Meta glasses. So my Meta glasses, by the way, they're Gen 2, but they're not. They don't have the picture on the inside of the lens. They're just a regular, normal glass lens that are made for to improve my vision. but I can hear through them right here, and it's got AI connection through my phone and all that kind of stuff. They're actually pretty cool, and there's cameras on them. I can take videos, but now this is something you can know whenever somebody is going to take. If you're wondering if you're on video, there's a button right here, and if I press and hold it down, I can hear a noise, and then all of a sudden you see that flashing. That tells the other people that you're on camera, and it does not give me the option to turn it off. So I even took a piece of tape just to see if it would work, and covered that lens, and when I turned on the glasses, and I tried to use the camera, the glasses said, no, you have to uncover that lens. And so I was like, all right. So unless they are electronically adept, which I could do this if I had to, if I wanted to, I could open the glasses up and disable that light, that LED. And that turns it off. Now, if I want to just take a picture, I just do one click like that. And what happens is it automatically forwards either the videos or the pictures to my my phone, to be part of my gallery, kind of a thing. And then if I want to include, like I do a YouTube like this, if I want to include video or anything like that from my glasses, I can at that point. But if you're ever wondering with the Meta glasses, if people are videotaping you, recording you and stuff, it's going to be flashing. It is entirely possible to disable that LED if they know how to do it. But it's not possible to just cover the lens because it won't allow you. I think this is really responsible because, there's a whole lot of those cheapy glasses. I mean, these are $400, but there's a lot of those really cheapy glasses out there that have like a little hole, like a pinhole, and it has a camera kind of a thing. And that is a way to videotape people without their knowledge. But the Meta glasses won't permit it. So I have this. So it just now clicked in my head. It said there's 4 messages on my phone. Interesting. So I'm still getting used to these. I've only had them for about a week, and the battery life is true to what they said it was going to be. It lasts about 8 hours, a little less if you're using the AI part of it a lot. Like if I have to ask the AI a question, I just say, "Hey Meta," and it has a little bing, and I can ask a question like, "Hey, what's the temperature today?" Hey Meta, what's the temperature today?
In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, it's currently sunny and 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Today, it will be...
Okay, that's it. And so it just told me in Baton Rouge, the temperature is this, and it's sunny today, So that's interesting. So the other thing is, it's good for, I'm going to start driving a truck over the road. That's why I'm in the trucking program right now. And if a phone call comes in through my cell phone, I'm not allowed to answer my phone at work. I mean, while I'm driving and stuff. That's why you see truckers, like at truck stops, with a big old headphone on their head with a little mic thing like this. They could just be wearing Meta glasses, because if the phone rings, it'll tell me, hey, there's an incoming call, and I can say answer it and chat with whoever it is, or I can say hang it up, please, and it'll just hang it up. And if somebody texts me, it'll say, hey, you got a text, and I'll say read it, and it'll read it. And if I want to say answer it, it'll say, what do you want to say? And then you say it, and it sends it, and you say send, and that way it's all hands free. That's pretty cool for a truck driver for sure. But it's a lot of really interesting data. There's the next gen, which I will get at some point. But you never want to get the first iteration of anything that's technology, because they improve it drastically within short periods of time. And then if you got the brand new ones, you're stuck with the crap, and I'm not going to pay $400 to $700 for a pair of glasses that are the ones with the bugs, So I bought another pair of these also, which I bought these ones at Best Buy, and then I took them right to the eye doctor that I had just gotten that day. I just gotten an eye exam for DOT stuff, and I told them, hey, can you guys make these lenses prescription for me? And so they did. They sent them off, and I at the same time when I had that done, I ordered a new pair of these through them. The reason I bought these at Best Buy first was because they said that at the glasses place that for some reason it takes sometimes weeks for the glasses to come in through them. And so I said, okay, no problem. I'll buy these up front. And then once I bought these, I ordered the other ones. They're still not in yet, but that way I'll have two pairs of glasses because they last about 8 hours. I want to be able to have glasses like as long as I want them. So these have a case, and you can see in the bottom there's a little hole for plugging them in, and I just plug my charging cable into them. And the case itself has a battery in it that's like if I put the glasses in them, even unplugged, they'll charge up the glasses. But the idea is if I have two pairs, when one pair says it'll pop up automatically and say at about 7.5 hours, it'll say there's 15% of your battery life left. At that moment, I can just take them off, put them in the case, and then pick up the other one, put them on. I'm good to go, and just rotate them like that. Anyway, that's my plan. That's why I did that. But that's still they're $400 a piece. It's not a joke. So it's a great, useful tool. I'm going to use them, partly because of the hands-free stuff. And I also mentioned this in my last video, but I'm going to use them partly for my YouTube channel, which means, I was talking to ChatGPT and a while back ago and asked, what's some effective things I can do for my YouTube channel that people would enjoy. And it said that 50% of your video time should be not just on you, but 50% of it should be what you see. And I thought, okay, so what you need to do is have, a camera facing that way, and then sometimes turn it on you. Well, I thought, what if I, use my glasses rolls, and once in a while I just turned on the video, of the glasses, and whatever I'm looking at, it's looking at, so whether I'm on a hike or I'm driving or whatever, so I can use like that as a B-roll, as an alternative roll. And so at some point I got to get good at like editing, which I have no idea how to do now. It's going to be a learning thing, which I say it like I'm getting ready for a whipping, because at my age, learning is a real choice because my head's so full of crap right now that learning is not as easy as it used to be. And the other thing is I've had my computer dropped a bunch of times. When you box and you get punched in the head a million times. I went through one 3-day tournament, and a coach at the end of that told me as we were driving back in a van full of a bunch of guys, he said, "Hey, Underwood." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Just so you know, it'll be interesting for you to hear this, but you've been punched in the head over 1,000 times this weekend." And I'm thinking, I don't know how I can tie my shoes anymore. But back then in my 20s, that was just a lot of fun. That's just all there was to it. That was a lot of fun. And then in my 50s, I was like, I don't know, I was 50 in fact. I had something called a TIA, which basically is, it's like a stroke, okay? And what a stroke is a blood vessel, like, a vein, an artery in your brain gets clogged. So, the blood cells are moving along, and then maybe a couple of blood cells are sticky or low on water in your system or whatever, and they get sticky and they stick together, or a piece of cholesterol breaks free from somewhere it's been stuck to or whatever, and then it gets to a Y in the road, a fork in the road, and it gets stuck in that place. And then suddenly a part of your brain somewhere is not getting food, not getting oxygen, and suddenly you start to gimp out. Well, a TIA is a temporary stroke. So I was 50 years old and I suddenly started having stroke symptoms. Now I was an EMT for a while and with training and all that kind of stuff, and I recognized it immediately, which was good because I did a couple of good things. I grabbed a handful of aspirin, and I mean a fucking handful. I'm not talking about giant, but like 10, and popped them, chewed them up, swallowed them down, and drank about a quart of water. And then I called 911, and they came, got me, and went to the ER. They gave me a shot and stuff like that. So, I mean, the idea was an ambulance did not come get me. I didn't call 911. I called my wife, but it was the same thing as 911. She came and got me and took me to the emergency room. I should have probably called an ambulance, but I didn't. And so that stroke didn't last, and so it's called a TIA, which I used to know what that meant. You can look it up, Google it. And that was a little wake up call. So when you get to where you're 50 or so, you start paying for decisions you made earlier. One of the decisions I made earlier that I was paying for was eating meat. I know that sounds crazy, but I have a really smart brother who sent me a book called How Not to Die. And it was written by a physician who is, you think everybody that's a doctor is smart. Well, this guy is extra, extra, extra smart. He had really high-end medical colleges all calling him and asking them, please be a student at our school when he went to medical college. And he chose, out of 7 schools that kind of begging him to go there, he chose his favorite one. So that's the difference between a regular person has to try to get into a good one. He was having to turn down a bunch of them to choose his favorite one. I highly recommend reading that book, How Not to Die. In that book, he cites a whole bunch of studies about why human beings should not eat meat. And it's not because he's a do-gooder or, loves Bambi or something like that. It's because it's our systems didn't evolve to eat meat. You think, think about this. Have you ever been hunting? Hunting's not easy, and we have rifles, okay? Human beings had to chase animals down and had to figure out how to trap them, or just had to get lucky, and find one that was barely alive or whatever, or weak. So for the most part, human beings ate vegetables for thousands and thousands of years, and once in a while got lucky enough to eat meat, whether it's fish or a mammal of some type. In that time, we developed many, 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 many things, body chemistry wise, and our bodies learned to adapt to certain types of proteins and not as well to others. And it's because meat was hard to come by. Now, meat is easy to come by. In fact, we're getting way too much meat. It's called overproteinization. There's another doctor named Dr. Stephen Gundry. He talks about that. He was a cardiothoracic surgeon, a really, really famous one for a long, long time. And he pioneered the heart transplant in children. Before him, there hadn't ever been a heart transplant in a child before. He pioneered the use of certain new tools. He designed them and stuff like that. And he talks about that we're overproteinizing ourselves. And it's because of factory farms. We can get all the meat we want now, and it's according to both of these doctors, mostly this How Not to Die guy, we have systems in our body that we're kind of relatively unaware of, and that's not an accident. Our bodies are designed to fix themselves. Like we get an injury, you see how like a cut develops a scar, that's your body fixing itself. Well, there's a whole lot of internal stuff that your body is constantly working on to repair itself. And one of the things that works against those things are chemicals that are in meat, and nobody is teaching that. In fact, they're doing everything they can to suppress that because there's a gigantic industry that makes a whole lot of money and a whole lot of people that have built their lives around that industry, and that is the meat industry. Okay, I've hunted, my whole life, and I own a hunting rifle. Um, I've fished my whole life and stuff. I'm not against, eating animals. In fact, I'm a steak guy, but I haven't had a steak in years now, because I've done a whole lot of reading. Some people are playing with fun hobbies that don't get them any knowledge, and I get that. That's fun. I read, and I have one weakness, a guilty pleasure: Stephen King books. That gets you some knowledge, but I try to read, you know stuff that's real, like documentary type stuff, rather than, and like that book, How Not to Die. It's filled with real, actual medical studies, that people's names are on and stuff. It's provable. It's not emotional. It's not political. It's just factual. Okay, I highly recommend reading the book How Not to Die, and I've read it 5 times, 5 times, because while I'm reading, I'm processing, and I only absorb a certain percentage of what I read or listen to. You can listen to it on Audible, and I've been driving a bus for years while I was going to school, and when I didn't have passengers, I was listening to Audible books. That was one of them. I've consumed that book 3 times. Three of the times were listening to it rather than reading it. And I've read it 5 times because I learn new things each time I read it, because I've absorbed some of it. Oh yeah, that sounds familiar. And then I hear something new that I didn't remember hearing before. And it's because I was only absorbing a certain percentage of it, because while I'm absorbing it, my brain is rethinking about stuff and diving deeper into stuff, and then I miss the next few words or whatever. So I highly recommend any book that you're really interested in reading it more than once, because you'll discover an entirely different story the more times you read it, And a book like this is vital because, just think about the thousands of hours that went into writing a book like this. But more than that, all the research that took years each for these studies. They took years each, but I read it in a book that thick. It takes no time at all to absorb that information that was hard earned through those other people. We are in the age of information right now. We are the luckiest human beings that have ever lived. We have the answers to all the questions. I have a few more questions, but we have the answers to most of the questions, And the fact that some people don't take advantage of that is just insane to me. So one of the things that I'm going to do on my channel here is I'm going to limit my posts to 30 minutes because, and I apologize to my listeners that are viewers that have followed me for a while, because some of my posts were like an hour or two. Holy moly, I don't know how you ever put up with that, or if you did. So I'm going to limit my posts to 30 minutes. If I still have more to talk about, like right now, I'm over caffeinated, so I have more to talk about. I'm going to kill it at 30 minutes, and then I'll just start the next post, kind of a thing. So sometimes you'll see my channel, it'll say the same, and I try to date them, but it'll say the same date over and over and over again. And that's because they're just the next one and the next one and the next one. One of these days I'll get organized enough to be able to make it easy to see which one is the number 1, number 2, number 3 of the day, kind of thing. And I've watched a lot of people's channels. There used to be one called Bo of the Fifth Column. God, I used to love watching that guy. He's got to be a genius. He's got to have an IQ of somewhere in the 160s, is my guess. But then, you know, it went by the wayside. He must have gotten tired of it and handed it off to his wife. She's a nice lady, but it's not the same. I identified with him, I guess, or something. So anyway, that's 30 minutes. Hey, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And I know everybody says this, but if you liked this video, for my own personal information, would you hit like? And that just tells me that I'm barking up the right tree. And when they always say subscribe, I don't mean subscribe that costs you money. I don't like doing that either. So sometimes on the videos, there's a white subscribe button. If you hit that, it doesn't cost you any money, not from me anyway. And that'll work. Sometimes there's no subscribe button. Sometimes just a white bell, which is a notification. And it just lets you know that I've posted a new video. If you hit that, that'll also bring me up on a regular basis. So, and all that does is for my own personal information. It tells me that I'm doing the right thing. If I don't get a lot of subscribers, then that tells me I got to make changes. And one of the changes I've recently made was to reduce the amount of time per video. Okay, so I'm trying to refine this to make it more interesting to people and more usable to people. So anyway, like and subscribe. And most of all, please comment. Ask me questions about myself, whatever you want to do, that's fine. Or tell me what you liked and tell me what you'd like me to cover more of. Sometimes I barely touch on something that you want to hear more about, and I got a lot more information about it, kind of a thing. I constantly do research. I'm ridiculous that way. So if you're interested, or if you want to know why I'm this fucked up, ask. I'll tell you. I'm stupidly honest. Okay, you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching.